Welcome. You are here now, and that is the only thing that matters tonight. There is nothing else required of you, nothing waiting, nothing pressing, nothing that needs your attention before the morning comes. You have arrived at the end of your day, and the end of the day is a soft and generous place, a place that has been here all along, simply waiting for you without any urgency, without any demand, without asking anything of you except that you rest. And resting is exactly what you're going to do now, simply and completely, the way your body already knows how to do, the way it has been doing every night of your life without any particular effort from you. Take a moment now to feel the surface beneath you. Feel how it holds you completely, without reservation, the way something that has been supporting weight for a long time knows how to do it, simply and well. Feel your body settling into that surface, your shoulders pressing down, your back releasing, your legs heavy and still, the back of your head pressing gently into your pillow. And with each slow breath you take, feel yourself settling just a little more, releasing just a little more, the weight of the day coming out of you gradually, not all at once, but gradually, the way water drains slowly from a vessel, drop by drop, until the vessel is empty and light and clean. Your shoulders can drop now, just that last small degree that they sometimes hold without your knowing. Your jaw can soften, the muscles around your eyes can release, your hands can open, your fingers can uncurl, and your arms can rest flat and perfectly still at your sides or across your body, wherever they are most comfortable, because there's nothing for them to do tonight. There's nothing for any part of you to do tonight except to rest, which is something you are already doing, which is something that is already happening, which requires nothing more from you than this. Simply being here, simply allowing it. I'm going to tell you about a world that is very, very far away, not just in distance, which is already great, but in time. A world separated from you by 3,000 years, or perhaps 4. A world so old that the people who built it are as remote from us as we can truly imagine, and yet a world in which people got up in the morning and went about their days and ate their meals and tended their fires and laid down to sleep at night in the same quiet, unhurried way that people have always done these things, in every time and every place, because these things are simply what daily life is, in any century, in any land, under any sky. The world I'm going to tell you about is ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of grand events or famous rulers, or the great monuments that you may have seen in books or images, but the other Egypt, the quiet Egypt, the daily Egypt, the Egypt of a small house near the river on a warm morning, with a smell of bread baking in a clay oven drifts through a narrow street, and the sound of the river is always there in the background, constant and soft and entirely without urgency. The Egypt of ordinary people living their ordinary lives with the same patient, repetitive, deeply human ordinariness that all lives have at their center, beneath whatever else surrounds them. There is nothing alarming in this story. There is no danger, no drama, no conflict of any kind. There's only the warmth of the ancient Egyptian morning, and the sound of the river, and the small, careful, deeply ordinary tasks of a day that happened a very long time ago, and that is entirely, completely, and in every way safe to drift into and through and out of the other side of, into sleep. You do not need to remember anything I tell you. You do not need to follow every word. You do not need to learn anything or hold on to any detail. Simply let the story be there. The way the sound of the river is always there in this world we are going to, present, continuous, unhurried, asking nothing, simply flowing, simply there, simply good. Before we step into that world, take one more slow breath. Breathe in through your nose, very gently, feeling your chest and your belly rise just slightly. Just a natural, easy rise, nothing forced, nothing deliberate. And then breathe out through your mouth, long and even and completely, letting everything go with that breath. Every thought, every plan, every small worry that has been following you through the day and into the evening. Simply breathe it all out, slowly, and let the next breath come in clean and easy. And let your breathing settle into whatever rhythm it finds by itself, which is always the right rhythm, which has always been the right rhythm, which requires absolutely nothing from you. Your body is growing heavier now. This is the right direction. Your legs are heavy, pressing down into the surface, beneath them with a warm, pleasantly permanent weight. Your arms are heavy. The back of your head is heavy against your pillow. There's a warmth gathering in you, moving from the center of your body slowly outward. The warmth of rest beginning. The warmth of everything that has been held through the day beginning to release. The warmth of a body that is doing exactly what it is supposed to do at exactly this hour of the night, which is to rest, which is to let go, which is to sink gently and completely into the comfort of this moment and this darkness and this quiet. Let that warmth be there. Let it reach your feet, your hands, the crown of your head, in its own time, at its own pace, the way warmth from a cooking fire spreads through a small stone room, slowly, gently, reaching the corners eventually, taking its time, asking nothing of you, simply spreading. We're going to Egypt now. Ancient Egypt, the Egypt of 3,000 years ago, or thereabouts. A world of warm stone and warm air and the great, slow, patient river that runs through the middle of everything. The Nile. We will not go to the river just yet. First we will go to a street, a narrow street in a small town on the river's western bank, where the houses are made of mud brick dried in the sun to the color of pale earth, where the morning is already warm even though the sun has only just cleared the eastern horizon, where the smell of the river and the smell of bread and the smell of warm dust are all present together in the air of the street, and where a woman named Nebet is just beginning her day. The street where Nebet lives is not wide. It is perhaps the width of two people standing side by side with their arms extended, no more, and in some places slightly less, where the walls of the houses bulge outward from years of settling. The walls are made of mud brick, rectangular bricks of Nile mud mixed with straw and dried in the sun, the same material as almost everything built in this land, the material that the land provides in such abundance that it has been used here for as long as people have been building anything. The color of the walls is the color of the earth beside the river, a pale, warm, yellowish brown, slightly lighter where the plaster that coats them has dried thoroughly, slightly darker in the lower sections where the moisture of the ground has crept up through the brick. The houses are low, one story, most of them, with flat roofs that people sleep on in the hottest months of summer, when the interior is too warm for comfortable sleep and the roof is open to whatever breeze comes off the river. At this time of year, the time we are entering, which is the season after the flood, when the Nile has retreated and the fields are covered with the rich black silt that makes this land so extraordinarily fertile. The nights are warm, but not oppressively so, and most people sleep inside, on their low wooden beds or their reed mats, under a single linen sheet that is the lightest possible covering and yet sufficient. The street is quiet at this hour, which is the very early morning, the sun just above the horizon, the air already warm, but not yet hot, the particular pleasant warmth of an Egyptian morning before the full heat of the day arrives. A dog is sleeping against the base of a wall further down the street, its side rising and falling slowly, with its breathing, its legs stretched out, entirely at ease. A few pigeons move along the top of a roof, their footsteps faint, their occasional murmuring sounds soft and entirely undemanding. From somewhere nearby, perhaps 2 or 3 houses along, there is the smell of bread. Someone has already lit their oven, and the bread is already baking. The smell of it moving through the still morning air of the narrow street, in the particular way that bread smell moves. Not a sharp smell, not a sudden smell, just a warm, deep, yeasty presence that seems to come from the air itself rather than from any particular direction, simply there, simply making the air of the street smell of bread and warmth. Nebet is perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair and dark eyes, and the particular smooth, brown skin of someone who has lived her whole life in this warm and sunny land. She is wearing a simple white linen dress, standard garment of ordinary Egyptian women of this period, a straight piece of woven linen that wraps around the body and is tied or pinned at the shoulder. reaching to her ankles, its whiteness slightly off-white from washing, its texture fine and slightly stiff. Her hair is pulled back from her face and secured, and she has not yet put on the small amulets and beads that she wears during the day. Those are still on the small wooden shelf near the door, where she puts them each night. Her house is small. The main room, the room where the family eats and sits and does most of the business of the day, is perhaps 15 feet by 12, its ceiling low, its floor of packed earth smoothed to a surface that is almost like stone from the accumulated compaction of years of feet. The walls inside are plastered and whitewashed, the plaster applied by hand in smooth, even strokes, the white slightly warm-toned from the natural color of the materials, rather than a pure, cold white. Near the door, the small wooden shelf with the amulets. Along one wall, a low chest of acacia wood, dark and dense, its surface worn smooth. A low table near the center of the room, and around it, woven rush mats on the floor for sitting. At the back of the main room, a doorway without a door, just an opening, hung with a piece of linen for privacy, leads to the smaller back room where the sleeping pallets are, and behind that, through another opening, the small enclosed courtyard where the oven is. Nebet goes to the oven. The oven is a clay cylinder perhaps 3 feet tall and 2 feet across, set into the corner of the small courtyard and coated on its exterior with a thick layer of dried mud that insulates it and makes it more efficient. The interior of the oven is a dome of baked clay, its inside surface darkened with the carbon of many fires, its opening at the top where the fuel goes in and where the flat bread discs are placed to bake against the hot inner walls. It is not yet hot. Nebet lit it very briefly last night and let it go out, and this morning she must build it up again. She crouches before the oven and looks into it. The ash from last night is there, pale and light, and beneath the ash, she knows, there will be a few remnant coals if she looks carefully. She uses a small stick to move the ash aside gently, and there they are, 3 small orange points, very faint, barely there, but present. She cups her hands around her mouth and blows very gently across them. A long, even, controlled breath, and the coals respond by brightening slightly, a deeper orange, a small, tentative thread of smoke rising. She feeds them. Small pieces of dry palm wood first, very thin, placed around the coals with care, leaning against each other, so the air can move between them. She blows again, the same long, gentle, controlled breath, and a small flame appears, tentative and pale, feeling its way along the edge of the nearest piece of wood. She adds another piece, then another. The fire is finding itself now, becoming more confident, the flame growing from pale to yellow, the heat beginning to build inside the clay walls of the oven. She sits back on her heels and watches it for a moment. The courtyard is small and enclosed, its walls the same mud brick as the house, its floor beaten earth. A fig tree grows in the corner, its branches reaching above the wall into the morning sky, its large leaves still and dark green in the early light. A clay water jar stands against the wall, its surface slightly cool and damp where the water inside has sweated through the porous clay, keeping itself cool through the night. The sky above the courtyard is a deep, clear, uncomplicated blue, the particular blue of an Egyptian morning sky, a blue that seems both close and infinitely deep, a blue without any cloud or variation, simply blue from one edge to the other. Let yourself settle into this courtyard. Let the warmth of the Egyptian morning be there with you, not the heavy heat of midday, which is still hours away, but the gentle, pleasant warmth of the early morning, the warmth that is simply the air of this place being the air of this place, warm and dry and faintly smelling of the river and the bread from the neighbor's house, and the particular dusty, mineral smell of sun-warmed mud brick. Let the sky above be there, that deep, uncomplicated blue, going on and on above the small courtyard without any edge or boundary. Your body is so heavy and so still. Your breathing is so slow and so easy. Let it be the breath of this morning, the breath of this courtyard, in and out, slow and even, in and out. While the oven heats, Nebet prepares the bread. The bread making is a central task of the Egyptian morning. Bread is the foundation of the diet here, eaten at every meal, the most important single food in a world where grain is abundant and the flood of the Nile makes this land the most agriculturally productive place in the known world. The grain is emmer wheat, and it has already been ground. Nebet ground it yesterday evening, as she does on alternate evenings, kneeling at the stone hand mill that stands against the wall of the main room and working the upper grinding stone back and forth across the lower one, the grain going in at one side and the flour coming out the other. A slow and physically demanding process that she has done so many times that her body knows exactly the motion and the pressure required. The flour is in the clay bowl on the low table inside, a wide, deep bowl of the warm terracotta color of all the pottery in this house and in this town, its interior slightly smoky from years of use. She adds water from the large jar in the corner of the main room, scooped with a wooden ladle, poured slowly into the center of the flour, and a small amount of the leavening mixture she keeps in a sealed clay pot, a living preparation of fermented grain that she has been maintaining and feeding for years, that her mother gave her when she married and moved to this house, that has its own continuous existence as a small piece of living culture that connects this bread to all the bread that has been made in this family before it. She mixes the dough with her hands. The flour and water and leavening come together gradually under her working, at first crumbly and resistant, the separate elements not yet unified, and then slowly, as her hands press and fold and turn, becoming more cohesive, more unified, the separate elements becoming one thing, a dough that is smooth and slightly elastic, and that springs back very slowly when she presses it with her thumb. She has made this bread so many times that her hands know when the dough is right, not by counting or measuring, but by feel, by the particular resistance and softness that signals readiness. She shapes it into flat rounds, pressing each piece of dough between her palms, turning it, pressing again, the round getting thinner and wider with each pressing, until it is the right thickness, which is perhaps half an inch, the right diameter, which is perhaps 8 inches across. She makes 6 of them. Each one is pressed to the interior wall of the hot oven, sticking to the hot clay, and she closes the oven's small top opening with a flat piece of clay and leaves the bread to bake. The baking will take perhaps 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes there's other work to do. Nebet goes to the water jar and lifts it. It is heavy, full from yesterday's carrying from the canal, and pours water into the smaller clay basin for washing. She washes her hands and face in the water, which is cool from the night, the coolness of it pleasant against the morning warmth, the water leaving her face and hands feeling clean and slightly cool in the already warm air. She dries with the linen cloth hanging beside the basin. The amulets go on next. She takes them from the shelf near the door one at a time. A small faience bead collar, its beads pale blue and green and white, threaded on fine linen cord. A small carved amulet of smooth green stone in the shape of a frog, hung on a cord around her neck. 2 simple copper bracelets that she slides onto her wrists. These are her everyday ornaments, modest and practical, worn every day. Part of what putting herself together in the morning means, as natural and unremarkable as the dress. The bread is done. She knows by the smell. The baking smell has deepened and changed from the raw, yeasty smell of dough going into heat to the finished, browned, deeply savory smell of bread fully cooked, a smell that fills the small courtyard and drifts into the main room and out through the front door into the narrow street, joining the other bread smells of the morning street that are coming from every direction now as other households go through the same morning routine. She opens the oven top and reaches in with the flat wooden paddle and lifts each round from the wall, the bread coming away cleanly, its contact surface dark and slightly charred in places, its top surface pale and smooth, the whole thing firm and warm and fragrant in her hand. 6 rounds of bread on the wooden board. She looks at them for a moment, not with any dramatic feeling, simply noting that they are done and they are good, and carries them inside. Her husband, Mary, is awake now. He is a scribe, a man who works with papyrus and reed pen and the black and red inks that are kept in small clay pallets, writing and recording the accounts of the grain store at the local administrative building. He is a quiet, methodical man who takes his work seriously without making much of it, who is up at a reliable hour every morning and who eats his breakfast quietly and goes to work and comes home at the same hour in the afternoon, and who does not require very much excitement from his days, which is good, because his days do not provide very much excitement, which suits him perfectly. He is sitting on the rush mat beside the low table when Nebet comes in with the bread. She breaks 2 of the rounds onto the board and sets it on the table, and brings the small clay pot of date honey from the shelf, and the bowl of dried figs, and the jug of beer, Egyptian beer, thin and slightly sour, made from partially baked bread dissolved in water and fermented, a nutritious liquid that is the universal beverage of this land in this time, drunk by everyone from the youngest child to the oldest farmer. They eat breakfast together at the low table, sitting on their mats in the early morning light that comes through the open front door and the small high window cut into the front wall of the house. The light is golden and low at this hour, coming in at an angle that catches the dust in the air and makes it visible. Small motes drifting very slowly in the beam of light, drifting without any particular direction, simply suspended in the warm air of the room, going where the air goes, which at this hour is nowhere very definite. The bread is warm and slightly dense, the crust of the contact surface dark and firm, the interior softer, the taste of it plain and good and entirely itself. The taste of bread, the most fundamental taste, the taste that has been a foundation of every meal in this house and in this land for generations beyond counting. The date honey is thick and very sweet, spread with the wooden spatula and a thin layer on the bread, adding its sweetness to the plain grain taste of the bread in a combination that is entirely satisfying and requires nothing more. The figs are dry and concentrated, their sweetness intense, each one eaten in 2 bites. The beer is drunk from the wide-mouthed clay cup in slow sips, its slightly sour, slightly fermented taste, simply the taste of the morning drink, familiar and unremarkable. They do not talk very much during breakfast. The morning is not a time for conversation in this house. It is a time for the quiet, parallel occupation of getting the day started, each of them attending to their own morning experience, without requiring the other to fill it with words. Mary eats his bread and drinks his beer. Nebet eats hers. The sounds of the street come in through the open door. Feet on the hard-packed earth of the lane. A distant voice. The chickens that someone keeps behind the house further down the street, making their soft, continuous clucking sounds. The pigeons on the roof, still murmuring. Let yourself be in this room. Let the golden morning light be there, coming through the door and the high window, catching the dust motes in its beam. Let the smell of the warm bread be there, and the date honey, and the slight earthen smell of the clay walls, and somewhere behind everything the very faint, clean smell of the river, which is always there in this town, always present at the edges of every other smell, the smell of the Nile that has given this land everything it has. Let all of it be there softly, without asking anything of you, without requiring any response. Simply present the way everything in this small house is present, quietly, warmly, completely. Your body is so heavy. Your breathing is so slow and so easy. In and out, in and out. The same slow rhythm, the same effortless continuation of something that has always continued. Let it be the breath of this morning room, warm and golden and entirely still. After breakfast, Mary prepares to go to work. He goes to the wooden chest and takes out his work equipment, the long wooden pallet that holds his reed pens in their slots and has 2 oval wells for the black and red ink cakes that he will grind and mix with water, a roll of papyrus wrapped in linen, a small clay water jar. He wraps these in the linen cloth and ties it with cord and sets it by the door. He puts on his sandals, simple sandals of woven papyrus grass, their soles worn thin in the centers from long use, tied around the foot with 2 cords, and picks up his bundle and says something brief to Nebet, something practical and unhurried, and goes out into the morning street, his sandals making the flat, quiet sound of sandaled feet on packed earth as he moves away down the lane. Nebet watches him go from the doorway for a moment, not with any strong feeling, simply the natural pause of watching someone leave, and then turns back to the room and the morning and the day's work. The morning work in the house is various and familiar. Nebet sweeps the floor of the main room, a short-handled broom of bound palm fibers, the sweeping motion slow and even, the dust gathering before the broom in a thin, obedient line, being guided toward the doorway and out into the street. The floor after sweeping has a slightly different appearance, the pale earth surface smoother and cleaner, the marks of the night and the morning cleared away, the room beginning fresh. She sweeps the back room as well, and the small courtyard, working through each space in the same unhurried order. She refills the water jar from the canal. This requires a walk. The canal that brings water from the Nile into the town is perhaps 5 minutes' walk from the house, and Nebet makes this trip every morning, carrying the large clay jar on her head in the way that women carry heavy loads in this part of the world, balancing it with the ease of someone who has done this since childhood, one hand raised slightly to steady the jar, her posture straight and even, her pace unhurried. The walk to the canal takes her through several of the town's narrow streets, past the house of the baker, whose bread smell is strongest here, past the small open workshop of the sandal maker who sits in his doorway, already at work on a new pair, past the junction where the street widens slightly into a small open space where a palm tree grows, its trunk tall and smooth, its feathery crown far above, dark against the deep blue sky. The canal is a narrow channel of still brown water, bordered on both sides by reeds and a few papyrus plants whose tall, triangular stems rise above the water and whose green, slightly feathery heads catch the morning light. The water is quiet and flat, its surface reflecting the blue of the sky in a slightly murky way, the reflection broken here and there by the reeds at the water's edge. A few ducks are there, sitting on the water very still, or moving very slowly along the edge in that particular way ducks move, with a slight rocking motion, their heads dipping occasionally to the water. Nebet fills her jar from the canal, scooping the water with the smaller clay vessel she brings for this purpose, pouring it into the large jar slowly, the water going in with a quiet internal sound. The jar fills gradually, becoming heavy on her head as it fills. The walk back to the house with the full jar is slow and careful. The jar is heavy and the streets are narrow and the ground is uneven in places and care is required. She moves at the pace that carrying a heavy jar on one's head requires, which is a slow, measured, upright pace, each step placed with slight deliberateness, the water in the jar staying still if she moves evenly, sloshing slightly if she moves too quickly. She moves evenly. The water stays still. Back at the house, she sets the jar in its place against the wall of the main room, pressing it slightly into the floor so it stands stably, and rests for a moment. The morning heat is building now. It is perhaps 2 hours after sunrise, and the sun has risen above the roofline and is beginning to reach into the street and the courtyard. Its light more direct now, its heat more present. The pleasant warmth of the early morning is shifting toward the more substantial warmth of the Egyptian mid-morning, still comfortable, still manageable, but carrying more of the day's heat in it than the first hour did. She waters the small garden patch at the back of the courtyard, a narrow strip of earth against the south wall where she grows garlic and onions and leeks, the plants at various stages of growth, the garlic already tall and green, the onions showing their first leaves, the leeks thick and dark. She fills the small clay watering vessel from a house jar and carries it to the garden and tips it slowly along the base of each row, the water going into the dry earth in a slow, dark spreading, absorbed immediately, leaving the earth's surface slightly darker where it has been watered. She does this twice, 2 vessels of water along the rows, and the small garden is done. The morning's other task is the linen. Egypt produces fine linen from flax that grows in the fields, and in every household there is always linen being washed or dried or mended or stored. Nebet's household is no different. She takes the pieces of linen that need washing, 2 sheets, a dress, several smaller cloths, to the small stone basin in the corner of the courtyard and washes them there with water and natron, a naturally occurring salt that serves as a cleaning agent, rubbing each piece against the basin's rough interior surface with a slow, methodical motion, the natron working into the fabric, the water going milky and then dark with the dirt it is lifting from a cloth. The washing is slow, repetitive work, the kind of work that occupies the hands completely while leaving the mind free to go wherever it goes or to go nowhere, which it often does in the middle of washing, simply resting in the warm, slightly soapy, splashing world of the task without going anywhere at all. Nebet works through the pieces one at a time, washing each thoroughly, rinsing in clean water, wringing out the water with the twisting motion that she applies with practiced efficiency, and laying the washed piece over the low wall of the courtyard to dry in the sun. The sun on the wet linen begins its drying work immediately. The Egyptian sun is generous with its drying, and cloth laid in it in the morning will be dry by noon, stiff and slightly whitened by the sun's bleaching effect, the natron left in the fabric making it stiffer than before washing, requiring one more rinse and wringing before it is truly soft again. But Nebet does not think about this now. She simply washes the current piece, wrings it, lays it on the wall, and takes the next. By mid-morning the washing is done. The linen pieces are draped along the courtyard wall in a row, their pale surfaces catching the sun already pulling the moisture from them in a process that is visible if you look closely, the cloth darkening slightly as the water is drawn out, lightening again as the surface dries. The courtyard smells of wet linen and natron and the warm earth and the fig tree above, whose leaves are warming in the sun and giving off their particular faint, green, slightly milky smell. Nebet sits in the shade of the fig tree for a little while. The fig tree's shade is dense and cool, its large leaves overlapping to create a canopy that blocks the direct sun completely and makes the area beneath it noticeably cooler than the sunlit yard outside it. She sits on a low bench of mud brick that has been built against the wall near the tree. A simple seat, really, just a raised section of the courtyard wall, its surface worn smooth by sitting, and she is still for a little while, just still, looking at the linen on the wall, looking at the blue of the sky above the courtyard walls, listening to the sounds of the morning town around her. Let yourself sit with her, in the shade of the fig tree, the cool shade, the warm sky above the courtyard walls, the white linen drying in the sun, the sounds of the Egyptian morning town drifting over the walls, a distant voice, the sound of the canal water somewhere, the birds, the perpetual warm quiet of a place where the sun is warm and the work is done for now, and there is nothing required of this particular moment except that it be what it is. Your body is so completely still. Your breathing is so slow. In and out, in and out. The shade of the fig tree is there with you, somewhere, in some version of the warm and quiet that you are already in, simply resting, simply being still. The Egyptian noon is the hottest part of the day, and like most people in this warm land, Nebet rests through the worst of it. The house is cooler than the street and the courtyard at this hour. The thick mud brick walls, which have been absorbing the cool of the night, are only now beginning to release that stored coolness, and the interior of the house has a temperature that is several degrees lower than outside. She goes inside and lies down on the sleeping mat in the back room, pulling the single linen sheet over herself, not for warmth, but for the feeling of being covered, for the slight comfort of something light resting against the skin, and closes her eyes. The room is dim. The back room has no window, only the doorway with its linen curtain, and the curtain filters the bright midday light to a warm, amber-tinged dim that is very close to darkness. The sounds of the town at noon are reduced. Other people are also resting. The streets are quieter. The noise of activity has fallen to its midday minimum. The pigeons on the roof are silent. The dog down the street is surely asleep. The children who were playing somewhere this morning are inside. There is only the warmth of the dim room and the slight sound of the curtain moving in whatever faint midday air stirs through the doorway. A very gentle movement, barely a movement, the linen lifting just slightly and settling, lifting and settling, in a slow, irregular rhythm that is simply the rhythm of the air, which has no intention, which simply moves as air moves, gently, without any particular direction or purpose. The afternoon begins when the worst heat is past. Nebet wakes from her rest. She has slept, or nearly slept, the distinction between the two not particularly clear in the warm dimness of the back room, and lies still for a moment, then sits up slowly and pushes the linen sheet back and stands. The room is the same as she left it. The curtain moves in its gentle way. The light through it is still warm, but slightly less bright than the noon brightness, the afternoon quality of the light already beginning to show itself in the slightly longer, slightly warmer, slightly more golden character of what comes through the doorway. She goes to the water jar and drinks from the wooden ladle. The water cool in the jar, the best thing possible in the afternoon heat. The water cool and clean and utterly satisfying in the way that water is satisfying when the body genuinely needs it. She drinks slowly, in small swallows, each one deliberate, each one good. The afternoon's work is different from the morning's. The morning is for the heaviest tasks, the bread, the washing, the water carrying, the sweeping, because the morning is cooler and the body is rested. The afternoon is for lighter work, the spinning, the weaving, small household repairs, the tending of the animals if there are animals, the preparation of the evening meal. Nebet spins. She has a drop spindle, a weighted stick, very simple. It's whirl a small disc of baked clay that gives it the momentum to spin freely, and a basket of combed flax fiber from which she pulls a continuous, even thread. She sits in the main room with the spindle hanging before her, the fiber pulling between her fingers, the spindle turning in slow, steady rotation below, the thread lengthening from her fingers to the spindle in a thin, even, slightly twisted line. The spinning is the most meditative of all the tasks in the Egyptian household day. It is entirely repetitive, the fiber pulled, the spindle turned, the thread lengthening, wound up, more fiber pulled, the spindle turned again, and the repetition of it is not boring in the way that boredom is unpleasant, but boring in the way that repetition can be restful, can be the thing that allows the mind to simply stop its usual activity and simply be present in the motion, the thread, the turning of the spindle. Nebet spins, and the afternoon advances. The light through the high window moves very slowly across the wall opposite, the patch of light beginning at one position and moving, almost imperceptibly, across the plaster surface as the sun moves through the afternoon sky. This movement of the light across the wall is the clock of this room, the measurement of the afternoon's passage, and Nebet is aware of it without looking at it directly. The way she is aware of all the things that tell her where the day is, without requiring her to pay them any particular attention. The linen on the courtyard wall is dry by now. She goes out and takes it down, each piece lifted carefully, folded in a simple fold, stacked on the low table. The linen is stiff and slightly rough from the drying, and will need to be worked slightly to soften it before it is used, but this can be done later. She stacks it on the chest in the main room for now. The evening meal. Nebet begins its preparation in the mid-afternoon, because the main meal of the Egyptian day is the evening meal, eaten after the day's work is done and the heat is eased, and it requires time. Today it will be a lentil stew. Lentils from the storage jar, dark and dry, scooped with a wooden ladle into the clay cooking pot, covered with water, set over a small fire in the courtyard. The fire is small and controlled, built in the clay brazier beside the oven, just enough flame to maintain a steady simmer in the pot. She adds to the lentils onions from the garden, pulled this morning, their outer skins dry and pale, their interiors white and sharp-smelling when she cuts them on the wooden board, the knife going through them with a clean, straight cut, the rings falling apart. Garlic, 3 cloves, pressed flat with the side of a knife, and then minced. The garlic smells sharp and clean. A handful of dried coriander seeds, crushed between 2 stones, their broken surfaces releasing their particular warm, slightly citrus smell. A small amount of oil, sesame oil, in a small clay vessel, poured in a thin stream over the surface of the pot, the oil darkening and becoming aromatic immediately in the heat. She stirs the pot with the long wooden spoon, the spoon old and dark from years of use, its handle worn smooth, its bowl slightly rough. The lentils and the onions and the oil and the spices move together in the stirring, the smell of the cooking rising from the pot in a warm, complex, deeply satisfying cloud. Lentils cooking smell of themselves, a deep, warm, slightly earthy, slightly savory smell that is one of the most fundamental cooking smells in the world, a smell that says that food is being made, that the evening meal is coming, that the day is moving toward its comfortable conclusion. She checks the bread from the morning. There are 4 rounds left, which is enough for tonight. She takes 2 of them and holds them near the heat of the brazier for a few minutes, just long enough to take the morning coolness out of them and restore some of their earlier warmth without actually recooking them. The bread warms in her hand, becoming more pliable, its smell returning slightly as the heat works through it. Mary comes home as the sun is nearing the horizon. She hears his sandals in the street before she sees him. The familiar sound of his particular walk, unhurried and even, the sandals making their flat, quiet sound on the packed earth. He comes through the door and sets down his bundle and takes off his sandals and sits on his mat. The evening meal is eaten as the sun finishes its descent and the day transitions to the particular beautiful softness of the Egyptian evening. The sky over the western horizon turning from the deep blue of the day to pale gold, and then to a warm, dusty pink, and then to a deeper rose, the color of the sky changing slowly, unhurriedly, simply the sky doing what the sky does at the end of a day in this warm, clear land. The light inside the house is warm and golden from this sky, coming through the open door and the high window, and in this light, the whitewashed walls glow slightly. The clay pots on their shelves catch the warmth. The faces of the 2 people eating at the low table are warm and golden. The lentil stew is ladled into the wide clay bowls, a generous serving, thick and deeply colored, the lentils soft and yielding, the onions dissolved into the stew, the oil creating a slight sheen on the surface, the coriander and garlic present in the smell and the taste, but not dominant, simply there, adding their depth to the fundamental taste of the lentils and the water they cooked in. The bread is torn and used to scoop the stew, the Egyptian way. The bread is utensil as well as food, torn into pieces and dipped into the bowl, each piece of bread carrying a small amount of the stew to the mouth. Beer from the clay jug, poured into the wide cups, slightly cool from the earthenware. It's mild, slightly sour, taste entirely familiar. They eat slowly. The evening is quiet around them. The street outside is quieter than the morning. The activity of the day has settled. People are inside their houses eating their own evening meals, the town drawing inward from the street and the heat into the domestic warmth of the evening house. Somewhere not far away, someone is singing very softly, just a voice, just a simple melody, not loud, not dramatic, just there, just the sound of someone singing quietly in their house at the end of the day. And then it stops, and the evening is quiet again. After the meal, the small tasks of the evening, the bowls rinsed in the basin, the cooking pot covered with its clay lid and set aside, the bread wrapped in its cloth, the courtyard fire extinguished. Nebet covers the brazier coals with ash to bank them for the morning. The same action Agnes does in the castle, the same action Thomas does in the lighthouse, the same action that people have been doing with their fires at the end of the day since fire was first made and kept, which is a very long time ago, longer than any of these specific stories, going back into a time before record. The lamp is lit. Egyptian lamps are simple clay vessels, shallow, open dishes filled with castor oil or another vegetable oil, a wick of twisted linen floating in the oil, its end resting against the rim of the dish where the flame burns. The flame is small and warm and slightly orange. Its light not bright enough to illuminate the whole room, but enough to see by if you're sitting close to it, enough to make the room feel less dark, enough to give the evening its comfortable, enclosed quality of being inside and lit against the dark. Nebet sits with her spinning again in the lamplight. The spindle turns in the warm circle of the lamp's light, the thread forming and lengthening, the evening continuing in its slow, quiet way. Mary sits nearby. He has a small piece of papyrus he is writing on, practice writing or correspondence, or simply the record-keeping that is the extension of his working habit into the evening, and the reed pen moves across the papyrus in small, careful strokes, making the marks of the hieratic script that is the working script of the scribes, faster and more cursive than the formal hieroglyphics of the monuments, the marks accumulating slowly across the surface. The lamp flame is very still in the still evening air of the room. It does not flicker. It simply burns, its small, warm, orange flame perfectly steady, its circle of light steady, the room around it steady, everything in the room completely still and quiet and warm. Let yourself be in this stillness. in this warm, small lamplight room. The Egyptian evening, 3,000 years ago, in a small mud brick house on a narrow street near the river. The lamp burning, the spindle turning very slowly, the pen moving in small careful marks across the papyrus. The smell of the evening meal still present in the air, and under it the smell of the lamp oil and the warm plaster walls and the linen, and somewhere, always somewhere, the faint clean smell of the river. Your body is so heavy, your breathing is so slow. In and out, in and out, the same slow breath, the same continuation of something that has always continued, that will always continue, that needs nothing from you, that simply goes on, warmly and easily, carrying you through this Egyptian evening and through the hours of this night. The lamp burns lower as the evening advances. The oil in the dish is being consumed slowly, the flame drawing the oil up through the wick by its capillary action, burning it at the flame point, producing the small amount of warm orange light that it has been producing for the last hour. Nebet pours a little more oil from the small clay vessel into the lamp dish, the oil going in slowly, the level in the dish rising slightly, the flame steadying from its slight flutter as the oil ran low. She finishes her spinning for the evening, winding the accumulated thread onto the spindle, putting the spindle back in its basket, putting the basket on the shelf. Mary has put away his papyrus and his pen and is simply sitting, his eyes perhaps a little heavy, his face in the lamplight relaxed and entirely without tension. The evening is at its end. They prepare for sleep. The sleeping mats are in the back room, low wooden frames strung with woven cord, on which a woven rush mat is laid, and on the mat a folded linen sheet for covering. Simple beds, entirely adequate, entirely comfortable in the warm Egyptian night. The back room is dark now, the lamp not brought in, the darkness in the room complete except for what filters through the curtained doorway from the main room lamp. Nebet takes the lamp and goes through the rooms once more, to the courtyard, checking that the brazier coals are properly banked, that the water jar is covered with its cloth cover, that the bread is wrapped, that everything is in its place and secure for the night. The courtyard in the late evening is warm and completely still, the sky above it a deep, velvet black, thick with stars, the Egyptian night sky, away from any significant artificial light, showing its full complement of stars and their ancient patterns. The Milky Way a visible river of light across the dome above the small courtyard. The palm tree's feathery head a black silhouette against the star-thick sky. She looks up at the sky for a moment, not for any particular reason, simply looking, simply being in this courtyard under this sky for this last moment of the day. The stars are there, as they always are, as they have always been, as they will always be. The same stars that the ancient Egyptians knew by their own names and their own stories, the stars that they studied and measured and used to orient their monuments, the stars that they saw as the bodies of their gods moving through the celestial sea. But Nebet does not think of them in these learned terms. She simply sees them, the stars above the courtyard of her small house, the same stars she has seen every clear night of her life, beautiful and familiar and enormous and entirely indifferent to everything below them, which is also entirely peaceful. She goes inside. She brings the lamp to the back room and sets it on a small shelf and lies down on her sleeping mat and pulls the linen sheet over herself. Mary is already lying down, his breathing already slow. She turns down the lamp wick, the flame shrinking to a very small point, barely there. Pilot flame, just enough to be a light without being a light, and then she reaches and pinches it out between her dampened fingers, and the room is dark. The darkness of the back room of a mud brick house in ancient Egypt, with no lamp and no window, is very deep. It is the darkness of an enclosed space in a world without artificial light beyond the flame, and it has a quality of depth and completeness that is simply the natural state of darkness when darkness is allowed to be complete. But it is not a frightening darkness. It is a warm darkness, a familiar darkness, the darkness of this room which is the darkness of every night in this room, simply here, simply dark, simply the room being the room at night. Nebet lies in the dark and the quiet. The sounds of the Egyptian night town are very reduced now. Almost no voices, no activity, just the very distant sound of the river, which is always there, which has been there for all the years she has lived in this house, and for all the years before that, and will be there for all the years after. The Nile moving through the dark in its slow, ancient, entirely patient way. She breathes, in and out, slow and even. Her body is entirely still on the mat, her limbs relaxed, her face relaxed, the linen sheet light and present over her, the darkness complete and warm and safe. The town is sleeping around her. The fields beyond the town are dark and still. The river moves. The stars turn very slowly in their ancient circles above everything, above the mud brick houses and the palm trees and the canal and the fields and the river, above the narrow streets and the sleeping town and the two sleeping people in the back room of the small house near the canal, simply there, simply turning, simply being the sky at night over ancient Egypt. Let yourself go into this darkness with her. Let the warm, complete darkness of the Egyptian night be the darkness behind your own closed eyes, warm and deep and entirely without any edge or boundary, simply dark, simply warm, simply the darkness that is the other side of sleep. Your body is so heavy on whatever surface holds you. Your breathing is so slow. The night is long and quiet, and there is nothing in it that requires your attention, nothing that asks anything of you, nothing that needs to be managed or resolved or even thought about. The river moves, the stars turn, the town sleeps, and you are resting in the warm darkness, 3,000 years away from a small mud brick house near the Nile, and yet somehow not very far from it at all, because the darkness and the warmth and the slow breath and the complete stillness of the body at rest are the same in every time and every place. They have always been the same. They will always be the same. This particular form of human experience, lying still in the dark, breathing slowly, releasing the day, entering the night, is the one experience that connects every person who has ever lived, in every land and every century. The darkness is here. The warmth is here. Your breathing is here. In and out. So slow. So easy. So completely without effort. The Egyptian night deepens. In the small house near the canal, both people are sleeping. Their breathing is the slow, deep, entirely regular breathing of people in deep sleep. Their bodies completely still. Their mind somewhere that is not this room, not this town, not this century. Somewhere that has no address and no description. Simply the somewhere that sleep opens into, which is always the same somewhere, which has always been the same somewhere, in every time and every place. The lamp is out. The courtyard is dark. The banked coals in the brazier glow with a very faint, very deep orange, barely visible, just warmth implied rather than seen. The fire holding its life at the absolute minimum, waiting for the morning. The narrow street outside the house is empty and dark. The dust on its surface is still. The sleeping dog is still against the wall where it has been since early morning. The chickens in their yard are still. The pigeons on the rooftops are still. The fig tree in the courtyard is still, its large dark leaves motionless in the completely windless night. The canal is still. No, not still. The water is always moving, but the surface of it is flat, and the movement of it is entirely beneath the surface. The slow, continuous movement of water going from one place to another, from the river to the fields and back again through the great system of channels that makes this land what it is, that has made this land what it is for longer than memory reaches. The canal surface reflects the stars imperfectly in the slightly murky water, but the stars are there in the reflection, small and wavering and very faint, present in the water as well as in the sky. The stars above and the stars below. The real and the reflection both equally stars in the dark. The night passes in the way that nights pass when they are not being watched, without event, without drama, simply advancing through its hours in the dark and the quiet, each hour indistinguishable from the last, the darkness constant, the warmth constant, the slow breathing of the sleeping town constant. The stars move in their ancient arcs. The river moves in its ancient course. The banked coals in the brazier in the courtyard continue their very slow, very patient burning. The linen on the shelf breathes the faint smell of natron and sun. Let the night move through you. Let its darkness be your darkness. and its warmth be your warmth, and its silence be your silence. You are so deeply still. You are so warm. Your breathing is so slow and so completely automatic, so completely without any effort or management from you, simply happening the way the river moves, simply continuing the way the stars turn, without any instruction, without any intention, simply the natural continuation of something that has always been happening and will always be happening. The night, the warm dark, the slow breath, in and out, the Egyptian town sleeping, the river moving, the stars above, everything in its place, everything well, your body heavy and still, your mind somewhere soft and without edges, the warmth all around you, the dark all around you, the quiet all around you, in and out, in and out, so slow, so easy, so completely, deeply, entirely restful. The stars will very slowly overhead. The Nile breathes its ancient breath. The mud brick walls of the small house hold their warmth through the night, the warmth they absorb during the long day's sun radiating back very slowly into the interior, keeping the rooms warmer than the night air outside. The walls doing what they have always done, simply holding and releasing, in the slow thermal rhythm of a building that works with its climate rather than against it. The pre-dawn hour arrives, the darkest hour, the hour that is furthest from both the day that has passed and the day that is coming. The sky above the town is at its deepest, the stars at their brightest, the air at its coolest. The town is at its most profoundly asleep. The sleep of the pre-dawn hours, the deepest sleep of the night. The body in its most complete rest, the mind furthest from waking. You are in that pre-dawn place now, that deepest place, the place that is furthest from any demand, furthest from any thought, furthest from the day and its requirements. You are simply here, in the warm dark, breathing very slowly, your body completely and entirely at rest. Your mind is still as the surface of the canal in the windless Egyptian night, as still as the dust on a narrow street, as still as the sleeping dog against the wall, as still as the linen sheet over two sleeping people in a small mud brick house 3,000 years ago near a river that has been flowing for longer than the oldest story anyone knows. Simply still, simply warm, simply breathing, in and out. The night holds you, the dark holds you, everything is well. Sleep now, simply sleep. Let the Egyptian night hold you the way it holds everything in this small sleeping town, completely, warmly, without any urgency, without any agenda, simply holding, simply being here, simply the darkness and the warmth and the stars above and the river below and the slow, patient, entirely unhurried continuation of the night, the river, the stars, the warm dark walls, the sleeping house, your breathing, in and out, in and out, the fig tree in the courtyard still, the lamp extinguished, the coals glowing very faintly, the linen light over sleeping bodies, the canal reflecting stars, the Nile moving, always there, the ancient river, the ancient night, the ancient dark, and you, here, warm, still, breathing, in and out. Everything is well. Everything has always been well. Everything will always be well. Sleep, simply sleep. The night is very long, and it is holding you, completely, warmly, entirely. Sleep.